Pulp Fiction, 30 years since Pulp Fiction, the Quentin Tarantino classic.
I mean, I don't know what I can say about Pulp Fiction that hasn't been said. Everyone knows the movie, I would imagine. I love Pulp Fiction. I feel like this is one of those movies that I've mentioned on our power rankings a ton of times. Like, we need to do a power rankings of like drug dealers. Like, you could fit into any category. I pretty kind of have, but I think it's one of the rare movies that's been talked about and studied to death, but it's still fun to talk about. Like, it's fun to quote. It's fun to show to people who haven't seen it. I remember when I was a senior in high school, I showed it to a bunch of people who had hardly seen an R-rated movie that wasn't Braveheart or Gladiator. And about 2 scenes in, everyone was just glued to the screen because they'd never seen anything like it before. That was one of the funnest experiences of my life. And I remember our buddy Ben Brown, friend of the podcast.
Shout out.
He never would admit to what his favorite movie was. But then, like, the next time I'd see him, he would quote entire chapters of Pulp Fiction by heart and made it obvious that this was his favorite movie, even though he would never admit it. And I kept telling him that. And like the Jimmy scenes, especially, were his go-to. Like, he could quote those backwards and forwards, and it was always awesome. I feel like it's hard not to like this movie. It's not like a Tarantino movie that has like tonal things that make it different or make it not easy to embrace. Like, it's not drawn out like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Jackie Brown or something like that. It's not super violent like Kill Bill or whatever. It's just sort of, I don't know, like the Fonzies. They're cool, you know. I've seen this movie a ton of times. I like cable with commercials on DVD, which was one of the purchases I had when I turned 17. I had to go buy Pulp Fiction from Best Buy, which I missed their movie section, of course. And it's one of those movies you could pop in to the movie at any time, and you're not going to feel lost, you know, and you just will watch it until the end. It doesn't even matter if it's commercially interrupted. You'll just keep watching it. It's not any scene is unnecessary. It's an amazing movie, and screw the rewatchables. I know they're not a fan of the Fabian scenes. Like, I love the Fabian scenes. And I think it's one of the most important movies ever made, one of the best movies ever made. I had it on my number 4 on my top 100 when we did that reveal, and I honestly think it's still like right there. If I'm ranking in terms of watchability, it probably has a fight for number 1 with like Almost Famous and Good Will Hunting. But if anything was ever going to dethrone The Deer Hunter, I would probably be this. And I've never admitted that before, but I watched it twice in the last like 2 days, and it is still, the fastest 154 minutes of like you can imagine. Like, you start the movie and then you look at your watch like 5 minutes later, and it's over an hour in, and it just continues like that. It is special in every way.
Well, Pulp Fiction is the most discussed movie of all time. It's the most talked about, the most like diagnosed, the most analyzed. I know that there was the documentary Room 237 all about conspiracy theories about The Shining, but if we're being honest, no movie, at least among dudes 40 or younger, is talked more about than this movie. When we came along, I was 7 when it came out, so we're, I think, on the younger end of the generation that absolutely loves this movie. So that's probably people older than 42. But yeah, I've always loved this movie. Everybody always loves this movie. I guess I would add a few kind of personal notes to it. So I don't remember the first time I sat down and watched the entire movie, but I do remember the first time I watched a part of the movie, which was it was on TV, which is weird because it's not a movie that I think airs that frequently on TV, especially back in that era. But my parents were in the room and they said, "Zach, you need to watch this." And it was the Mia Wallace and Vincent Vega dinner scene, and I was watching it, and they were like, "Just wait for it." I'm like, "What's happening?" They're talking. There's no, I promise, it's going to be hilarious. Just wait for it. And the scene went on, and then they finally got on the dance floor, and they danced, and I liked it, and I laughed at it, but it wasn't like the hijinks in Home Alone. It wasn't like there was a paint can that went by and hit someone on the head. It was funny in a more intellectual way, and in a way that was one of the real turning points of my life, I guess, as a film goer, watching that scene, enjoying that scene for what it was, but it didn't have to be screwball. It was esoteric. It was eccentric. It was different. in a way that really cast a lot of the things that I look for in movies, especially when I was growing up. When I finally did get to watch it for the first time ever, it was a mind-blowing movie. I want to say that I saw it. Okay, I will say about the original DVD, which I no longer own, sadly, it has that wonderful Jack Rabbit Slim's menu, and I wish I could have just kept that instead of selling that back with the DVD. But the Blu-ray is very nice too. It ports over pretty much everything, plus a nice, I think, 20-year retrospective on it that I don't think is on the DVD. Watching the movie again, when we did our Tarantino rankings earlier this year, when we saw Kill Bill, I placed Pulp Fiction number 3, which at the time seemed kind of unfathomable because it is really high on my list. Watching it again, I stand by my number 3. I think Jackie Brown and Kill Bill Volume 2 are movies that I don't know if they're better, but I like more. I enjoy watching more. I will give this movie, the first hour of this movie is a total and complete banger. It is a perfect movie. The Vincent and Mia Wallace segment is magnificent. The dancing scene might actually be the best scene in film history. I mean, bravo. You're like glad to be alive that you can watch something that brilliant. The Butch stuff and the Jimmy problem are not quite to that level. And I've always kind of felt like when you get to the end of the movie, when you're at the Mexican standoff with Honey Bunny and Pumpkin at the end, I'm kind of ready to end the movie. I think the movie is a little too long, but I said that's true about Tarantino. You got to take you take the good parts and the bad parts. Tarantino movies are always overstuffed. It's essentially what I said last week when we were talking about Inglourious Basterds. There's parts of the movie that to me are less interesting than other parts. And I guess that's true of every movie. But for me, for it to be like a number 4 movie all time for me, that generally means that the whole movie has to be as interesting as its best parts. And generally speaking, it may even have to get better as it goes along, which I don't think this movie does. However, it's a total blast to watch. It's a fascinating movie to think about. And it is a movie that redefined filmmaking. It redefined the 90s and it introduced the world to Quentin Tarantino. And you cannot divorce this movie from the persona, from the mythology that is Quentin Tarantino. He made a generation of guys who just sat around and watched cable TV and later went on the internet, believed that they didn't need to go to film school. They didn't need to be good looking. All you had to do was watch a bunch of old Roger Corman movies and French movies and Foxy Brown, and you could go to Amsterdam with your best friend and write a great screenplay. And it's really the American dream in filmmaking and personified by Tarantino. And so to me, it's hard to strip the movie away from that. It's a great experience. Watching it again it's always a treat. Although I will have to say it had been a while since I actually sat down and watched the whole thing. And I guess I have some critiques of it that we'll get into, but for a while you are watching it. And I can understand Todd's feeling that you might think that you're watching the greatest movie ever made.
What I realized watching it this time, I don't think I'd really seen this movie start to finish that much. And in some ways, I feel like watching it this time was like watching it for the first time, which is one of the things that's really cool about Pulp Fiction is that there's so much going on that every time you watch it, it's like you're watching it fresh. Because I'm watching it and I feel like it might have been the first time I truly got Pulp Fiction, like because I remember watching. I'm like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff going on. And like there's interesting characters, but I mean, what's really the point of this movie? That's kind of what my take is always been like, yeah, sure, yeah, it's an all-timer, great, yeah, but why? And that's why I mean, out of respect, you put it in your top 100, otherwise, everyone would freak out at you. But when it came down to like the Tarantino list, I'm like, why is it number 6? Because honestly, that's how I think of it. But this time watching, I'm watching through. I'm like, oh man, this is a great scene. And next time, oh man, this is a great scene. And then I realize, holy crap, every scene in this movie is like a monumental classic of film history. And
yeah, the whole movie is the good scene. Like yeah. I've said that about a couple things. This is one of the absolute ones.
Yeah, and every character is memorable and every scene is just like has this intrigue to it. And there is some sort of plot in there, but you really don't care about it. And no, I feel like this time I finally saw why everyone says Pulp Fiction's a masterpiece because it's just like filmmaking at its finest, and it's acting at its apex and telling the story disjointed and out of order. I mean, it adds a little bit of intrigue, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, what matters is that all these scenes just like rock, and you're able to put this movie together that is just filled with these memorable characters, these memorable scenes from start to finish of a 2.5 hour movie. And it's I know Tarantino was like, oh, he's only making one more movie because he's got to have the perfect 10 filmography. I mean, as far as filmmaking goes, he was never going to get better than Pulp Fiction. Like, because just putting out something that put its stamp on filmmaking that heavily, you're never gonna like.
Well, apparently he made 5 better movies.
Chasing Citizen Kane. I mean, yeah, he could have just stopped there, and everyone would have hailed him as one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. So, yeah, there were scenes in this where I'm like, have I ever seen this scene? Like Esmeralda in the cab. I don't remember Esmeralda at all.
It's because you're a mature adult now. When I first watched this, I didn't like. There were things I didn't understand. When I was probably, I don't know, 15 or something when I first saw the movie. I didn't understand some of it, and so it kind of is brushed over until you watch it with like adult eyes. I mean, I get that too.
And the unrealistic classic 40s filmmaking of Esmeralda and Butch in the cab, like, just adds to the charm of it. Like, they're just sitting on a soundstage. The background is in black and white, for goodness sake. I mean, they're not even trying to look like they're actually driving a cab, but it doesn't matter. Like, there's just so much great stuff, So
Tarantino has been making movies for over 30 years. He's had 3 stages to his career basically, and which is amazing because he's only made 9 movies, and that's a testament to him being able to have perspective on his overall filmography. Because this is still a young person's movie. He wouldn't make this movie the same way if he was going to make it now. Even if it was going to be as big of a hit, he wouldn't make it the same way because he's now in his 60s and he's got different perspective on everything. But yeah, I can't imagine what it was like to be like at Cannes in 1994 and watch this movie. I mean, there's a reason why it's one of the rare American movies to win the Palme d'Or, because I mean, it is like a banger that you've never seen before. It's got things you've never seen done on film before. And yeah, I mean, I've seen this movie a lot. I mean, it had been probably a few years since I had watched it, but I still think that it still hits the same way, even if you know what's coming. It's like watching Boogie Nights. It's like I could still enjoy the scenes even if I know exactly what was coming up in like the most shocking moments. But showing to people who haven't seen it before is still just as exhilarating as if you're watching it for the first time, because you get to see. Even if you've seen movies like it, you've never seen Pulp Fiction. If you've never seen Pulp Fiction, you've never seen Pulp Fiction.
Okay, Todd, highest war performance.
Okay, the highest war. I mean, there were like 4 clear choices here, and I'm gonna say Ving Rhames. It's hard to replace that just the embodiment of badass gangster level shit that he portrays in this. It's really hard to replace that. He has done that several times, and there's nobody that really did it quite like Ving Rhames.
All right, Zach, who's your highest war?
Well, it has to be Travolta, but if I wanted, because this whole movie wouldn't have been made unless it was Travolta, and there's stories about Tarantino, you had him in his house and they played board games and got drunk, and he basically gave Travolta, career advice or whatever. But
Weinstein wanted Daniel Day-Lewis, apparently, is what I read.
Weinstein, but Tarantino said he wouldn't make the film if they cast anyone other than Travolta. One of a few demands that Tarantino had.
My highest war is Samuel Jackson.
Yes.
And
there's not a bad pick here.
Yeah. I mean, Sam Jackson, he is so singular in what he's able to do and who he's able to be, and the presence he brings to every scene he's in. I mean, do they speak English and what? I'm trying really hard to be the shepherd.
I'm a mushroom cloud motherfucker.
Yeah, there's only one guy who speaks Tarantino's language the way Tarantino probably hears it in his head, and that is Sam Jackson. There's a reason why he's in almost all of his movies.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah, there's only one guy who really can say it the way he wanted it said, and that is Sam Jackson. So
Not to be talking about one charming motherfucking pig, like I mean, there's nobody that says that like Sam Jackson.
that is
Arnold and Green
one
Acres.
tasty burger.
Okay, the only pushback I would have against two things about Sam Jackson. Number one, I think Ordell and Jackie Brown is a higher war for Sam Jackson. And number two, Lawrence Fishburne was supposed to be the original Jules, and I could kind of see it. Like, he wouldn't be as good or as iconic as Samuel L. Jackson, but Lawrence Fishburne famously bowed out because the role, it wasn't a big enough role or whatever. But that's a easier role to recast, I would say, than Vincent and probably even Marcellus.
The other ones I wrote down were Bruce Willis, just because there are a few that are like Bruce Willis that would be at the top of their box office game and take a role like that, and also Peter Green as Zed, just because he was the villain in every movie he popped up in, where there was the mask or whatever. And on this podcast, I've said several times I called Peter Green Zedfoot because his name is Zed. And he's Redfoot in The Usual Suspects. I call him Zedfoot, and nobody laughs at that because Terry apparently hasn't seen this movie in a while. And there he is. He's laughing at this now. See, Peter Green is the perfect villain in the 90s.
Well done. Well done. No, that's a little too obscure for even me to catch on to. So, but good call. All right, Zach, the Bill Paxton Memorial worst performance.
A lot of great performances in this movie. Julia Sweeney is not one of them. I know she's not in the movie very much. She was obviously friends with Tarantino. He produced her one-woman show, God Says Ha, a few years later, which is really good, and she's great in it. And she is a good actress, but not here.
That's not bad. I'm going with Frank Whaley as Brett.
Oh, but he's
Frank Whaley is the slimiest
great actor
person to be that part.
It's true, but
you want to kill him.
Yeah, because of how bad he is.
He's been in so many movies just like that, in that kind of part. I still don't understand what his actual goal was. Like, why was he stealing the briefcase, and how, and what was his business? I just don't think that he actually fits in that role. So maybe it is a good call. I said the guy who plays Ed Sullivan because I don't know who Ed Sullivan is, and I just think that guy is really annoying. There's no bad performances in this. Yeah, I guess you could argue Esmeralda, the Angela Jones performance. I guess you could argue that, but I just don't. I don't think there's anything bad necessarily. I just the guy who plays Ed Sullivan, I'm just like, just shut up. That's what I think.
Esmeralda, I think her scene is pointless. It's something that if I were Sally Menke, I would have really seriously chopped down. In fact, they did on the DVD. There's an even longer version of the scene. But it's not her fault. I think she's actually really good in it. And apparently she played that character in another movie before Pulp Fiction. So, like, that's her lane. And I think she's good in it. But that scene is, like, to me, the worst scene in the movie. But it's not really Angela Jones's fault.
Minor character triumvirate next of Amazing Larry, Charlie Duke, and Matt Damon. My Amazing Larry, Big Tim High Roller minor character is Esmeralda. Honestly, it's a character I don't remember. And that scene, I'm like, oh man, it's such a, I thought that scene was great. Like, this is a great scene. I don't remember that character at all. So it was a pleasantly surprised moment for me. And my Charlie Duke, Take-A-Taker movie maker, I'm going with Marvin. Because, Marvin was the man on the inside in Brett's room. And he's the one that, puts his face in front of Vincent's gun. So that causes that whole chaos to happen. Marvin,
he doesn't even have an opinion.
Yeah, which, and if it wasn't for Marvin's face being in front of Vincent's gun, then they would have never gone to the diner to get robbed. And there's too much going on in this movie, but like 2/3 of it doesn't happen if Marvin's there. So.
And who's your Matt Damon? What movie are you in?
My Matt Damon. What movie are you in? It's Christopher Walken. No scene takes. It's a great classic scene, but no scene takes you out of what you're watching quite like Christopher Walken showing up as Captain Coons, shoving
But
it up his ass.
I feel like in this movie,
his ass is one of the great line readings I've ever heard, but also one of the most out of place things. I mean, he kept it for 2 years up his ass, and he keeps going. And this is an Oscar-winning actor from 16 years earlier, and this is what he's reduced to, a 3-minute part.
Being a Vietnam vet.
Yeah, of course.
Talk about typecasting here.
Would you? Okay, well, here's the real question: would you take the Christopher Walken monologue in Pulp Fiction or the scene with him and Dennis Hopper in True Romance? Because I think both of those are two of Tarantino's, I think, great. Like, I know, I think it's fair to make this claim that this is a Matt Damon scene, but to me, this Captain Coons is a pivotal character in the movie. When I think Pulp Fiction, I think of that monologue, and the movie isn't right without it. It sets up everything. With the Butch storyline,
it does fit with the True Romance like level of like I'm gonna have one actor show up for one scene and he's gonna do this amazing thing. My Amazing Larry award goes to what one I had as my number 3 favorite minor Tarantino character power ranking when we did that way back when, and that's Jody, which is Lance's wife. I think she's awesome. Because I feel like she's one of the more normal people in the movie, and she's actually sleeping at 1:30 in the morning. She freaks out and she says, that was fucking trippy. Like, I mean, that's exactly how anybody who actually is part of this would actually think. And she's awesome. I love Jody. Jody's my favorite character in the movie. Matt Damon, what movie are you in? I have Paul Calderon. Calderon, I don't know how you pronounce that. Calderon. He's just, I mean, it's a different movie when he's on the screen. He's like the bartender at Marcel's bar or whatever, and you see him again later. And my minor character who causes the movie to happen is Fourth Man, which is the one. What is it? Alexis Arquette.
Yeah,
I believe the one that comes out and shoots at them and causes the miracle. Or the act of God, or whatever you want to call it. Because if he wasn't such a terrible shot, the rest of the movie wouldn't happen after that.
All right, my minor character, kind of piggybacking off Todd, is Lance and Jody. We'll talk about sequels or whatever. If there's a sequel to this movie and you had to pick a character or 2 characters, I would go Lance and Jody. I'm watching them. That's fascinating. Man, I love the scene when Vincent is buying drugs from Lance, and that character is just perfect. And Eric Stoltz,
if the actors were younger, Lance would be Ben Foster. It is the most Ben Foster role I've ever seen. He's too old, but I've seen him do that.
Charlie Duke, Ticket Taker, Movie Maker. I have 2 of them in this category. I have Tony Rakihara for falling out of a 4th-story window and causing a lot of anxiety. And then my Matt Damon, I already mentioned it. This isn't an original take, but I'll say it again. I don't know what Esmeralda's doing in this movie. She's literally from another movie. It's not a bad scene. There's really not bad elements in this movie. It's kind of superfluous to even say there's a Matt Damon character or scene in a Tarantino movie that doesn't belong, because everything kind of belongs in the Tarantino universe. But that one we could probably deal with a little bit less. That felt like a Jarmusch movie, right? That felt like Night on Earth or something, or like Mystery Train. That didn't feel like a Tarantino.
The only reason that scene exists is because they need to let Butch know that he dies, and not just have it be like him hearing it over a radio or something, which would be weird to have him sitting in a hotel room listening to a radio. So that scene needed to exist. It just didn't need to necessarily be like that, I guess.
Yeah.
It felt like we interrupted like a sequel to Taxi or Taxi Driver.
Yeah, well, we'll get to flaws, but I wrote down 110:40 to 124:45. That is the stretch from when Butch gets in the cab to when he finds out that his watch is missing, and that is a stretch of the movie that I think I usually take a bathroom break during, like that.
5 minutes.
No, 124 is a 14-minute stretch.
Wait, so no, so you actually agree with the rewatchables? Like, because they say the bathroom break is Butch's girlfriend, and I don't agree with that at all. I think
She's
Fabian is one of the best characters in the movie.
I like her, but again, you're coming off of the best scene in the movie, which is the Mia Wallace, and it could have been, I think, half the length, and I would have been fine with it.
I disagree completely.
I don't need her talking about potbellies. I don't know what that has to do with anything. It's amusing, but here's the thing, and here's the real problem with it. And I will get into flaws later. Butch is on the run at that point. He's killed a man. He knows that Marcellus is after him. Why is he like serenading, Fabian? Like, to me, I think that character should be in a much more panicked state. He's on the phone with Scotty, who knows who that is.
This isn't 2024. There's no tracking your cell phone or anything. Like he just is like, oh, we had this hotel room already booked under my girlfriend's name who has nothing to do with me. Like, yeah, I mean, like he feels safe for a night.
I think
he's got to leap down.
In a movie as iconic and as quotable and as famous as this movie, very few people ever talk about that stretch of the movie that I'm mentioning. There's not a whole lot of iconic shit going on in that stretch.
I quote that in my head all the time.
Tripod of depravity goes to Todd first. Stickman, douchebag, most punchable.
My Stickman. See, this is tough. I guess I will say Vincent, because he had to give himself a pep talk in the bathroom to not sleep with his boss's wife. And I think he's freaking sly enough to know that he was going to get it in, right? I mean, I think he had done the work, and he had to talk himself out of sleeping with his boss's wife. That's got to make him a stickman, right? Douchebag, I'll say Maynard. Maynard, he owns a pawn shop, which is douchey enough, and he knocks people out so that his security guard or cop, whatever friend, can come rape them. Yeah, it's pretty douchey. And most punchable face, I said Kathy Griffin, because it's Kathy Griffin. She should have been the shot lady, but she's billed as herself.
I like
too,
Kathy
right?
Griffin.
Kathy Griffin as Kathy Griffin.
My stickman, I guess, is a tie, Lance and Jody. We know that they have a very kinky love life with the stud in her tongue, which I guess helps fellatio. My douchebag of the movie is Butch. I think Butch. First of all, if the watch is so goddamn important to you, why don't you grab it off the kangaroo shelf instead of making your girlfriend get it?
What he could grab, he was going to go fight.
It didn't matter. He should have grabbed it.
Get back to his bag or not? What is he going to put up his ass during a boxing match?
Pull a kg. His watch should be like the gem. It should be his good luck. He should take it everywhere he goes. Blaming her for not getting the watch, throwing the lamp.
How does he know that he's going to be able to get back to the locker room after the fight? That's a terrible pick.
Here's the real problem that I have with Butch. Right, he's the douchebag of the movie. You got who is it? I wrote down all the names here. We got Ryan Coolidge, Colonel Dane Coolidge. I don't think they ever mentioned his dad's first name. Why didn't Butch enlist? Why? I mean, come on, dude. Like, you got this legacy, military legacy, and you're not going to enlist. You're just a douchebag. Come on, you're supposed to be an American hero.
It's like if Lieutenant Dan became a boxer.
Yeah, exactly. Lieutenant Dan would have enlisted.
His name is Butch, too, because he was called Butch at a young age. Like, Butch is actually his given name. that's not his...
Show some respect for the flag. My last point's a good point, Todd. You have to even admit that.
That he didn't enlist? Yeah, I mean, that's the best point you made. But, like, other than that, I just don't see how he was ever going to guarantee that he'd get back to his watch.
But I think that's not the reason. I think he's a douche for his reaction with Fabian. You don't need to throw a lamp. Come on, give me a break. I know he's upset. He's obviously able to control it too, to some degree. I don't know.
It's a mythical thing in his head. This watch. I mean, like I could understand that. Like, if there was one thing you could have forgotten, it would have been anything but that thing. Come on.
If I yelled at my wife for forgetting the Chantal Ackerman Criterion that was burning in our house and threw a lamp at her, I'm pretty sure she would actually beat me up. So but you haven't made that clear from the moment you met them that was the most important thing in the world to you. Criterions are the most important thing in the world to me. My punchable face is Jules for drinking the Sprite. I think he swats that Sprite, swats it in his mouth 4 seconds too long. And he's drinking.
He killed the thing. That was the whole thing. He drank the whole thing because he's just like, I'm going to be an asshole and drink the rest of your Sprite right now.
It's a little douchey to drink and to have the Hawaiian burger, which apparently he's not allowed to have because his girlfriend says he's not allowed to have it. So I think that's a bit of a punchable face move.
Yes, drinking the Sprite is way more douchey than killing him.
Punchable
Yeah.
face. Not the,
How many? Like I know people that are married to vegetarians, and whenever they go out to eat, like they will eat steak or they will order the biggest burger on the menu because like it's just like you don't get that every like I mean I get it. Like he's just like, oh shit, I'm gonna eat like half this burger at 7:30 a.m.
have
You
you
know?
guys ever been to a Hawaiian burger place? Do those exist?
Yes.
I've never been to one.
Big
There's one
Kahuna
in-
Burger.
There's
Todd and
one
I
in-
went to a Big Kahuna Burger.
and there's one in Federal Way. I've been to as well. But yes,
Oh,
we
Hawaiian.
did go to a big Kahuna Burger.
In Seaside, Oregon. There's a
Yeah, we
big
talked about it on the podcast way back when I had a giant like $15 Bloody Mary.
My tripod of depravity, my Stickman, it's Mr. Wolf. I mean,
Your Stickman is Mr. Wolf?
absolutely. You know, like
How is
like
he not your minor character? Like he's not like the definition of a minor character. If you
I
want
mean,
to work
kind
for
of, yeah,
Stickman.
but he's the Stickman, right? I mean, like you know, he could walk up to any woman and be like, "Okay, so here's the plan. In 3 minutes, we're gonna go up to your room," and then
He could have been a
Wait.
character in Breaking Bad for sure.
my douchebag is Zed for some of the same reasons you said about Maynard. And my most punchable face. At first, I said Buddy Holly, but really, the most punchable face doesn't have to be Floyd Ray Wilson. I mean, his face was so punchable he died.
Yeah.
If he was a better fighter, he wouldn't have died. So
Dishonoring
That's just the side of a punchable face right there.
dishonoring the name of Floyd as a boxer. I'm sure Mayweather would be very offended by that.
true.
Mhm.
And they show his dead body too. I want to know who the hell that guy is. Like, is he a part of Marcellus's crew, like Floyd Ray Wilson? Because they're all like looking over his dead body. Like all of them are in there, right? In that little room. Like even Mia's in there. Like, who the hell was that guy? You know the scene I'm talking about?
I didn't even realize that was.
Well, yeah, they're
Yeah.
like, how you doing? And it's like he was obviously already dead, and that was when Paul Calderon
Yeah.
and Vincent are walking up to the room, and she's like, oh yeah, I never thank you for dinner, but they're looking over his dead body, like, and he's listed in the credits. Dead Floyd Wilson is Carl Allen in the movie. But like, who is Floyd Wilson to Marcellus? Because they wouldn't be in there if it wasn't just like somebody who they were trying to fix the fight for. It was, I don't know. You
I
guys
have a
got any input?
My only question about that scene was, why is Mia there? Now I know she's there to establish that she says, "How are you doing?" But that's like the screenplay. Like I don't know organically
Exactly.
why she would be there.
Exactly, but who is Floyd Wilson? Was he actually a friend of Marcellus, and is that why he wanted him to take the fall for him? And they wanted to make a bunch of money off of him or whatever. But like, I don't understand who that guy is. If they were the only ones in there, there was nobody else in there, not his trainer or anything, unless they were the trainers too. Didn't make any sense to me.
It kind of
I-
sounded like he was just the newly crowned. This is who we're gonna back. Like we backed Butch for a long time, but now you're getting a little older. It's this guy's turn. And
But
he's gonna be our guy.
But Marcellus and his guys were the only guys standing over his dead body, like after the fight. So it had to be somebody who knew Marcellus. So I don't understand who that
Carl's
person
son.
actually is.
Marcellus also might run the joint. Like he might own the establishment. Maybe he just has access to getting backstage or something. I mean, we don't know. Marcellus Wallace is one of the most powerful people in the world. So like,
I mean, he's a
He-
millionaire for sure.
he
They
would
said
seem to
that.
have access to a lot of. He lives in a very nice mansion, by the way. Nice swimming pool.
Paul's son. That's what I'm saying. Paul's son.
Something about that doesn't add up to me. I don't know what it is, but I mean, there need to be like a couple more scenes in this movie. It need to be a 3.5-hour movie.
Yeah, he
So
picked
Zach,
Jody.
best scene.
I already said it earlier. Mia and Vincent. I don't know what we'll call a scene in that. If you want to get specific, I would say they're dancing, but I would go the whole sequence. When you watch that, that is the cheesy AFI specials. That is, people talking about why you go to movies. That scene is magnificent. It's the reason why we love movies. It's magic. That's watching that scene every time I watch it is magic. I put on that scene anytime, any part of the day will cheer me up. I love it. Do you guys? What a soundbite. Do you guys have any stock in the theory that Vincent and Mia stole the trophy, that they didn't actually win first place? Because apparently when Butch is walking through the apartment, there's like a radio on that mentions Jackrabbit Slims. And so some people have said like they mention, the theft of the
It's
trophy.
before he gets it's like he walks like 2 blocks to get to his apartment. Like you hear it in the first building that he crosses. Like there's a radio thing that says
But it's a Jackrabbit Slims advertisement. I don't think it mentions the trophy, but I find that intriguing. I don't like that theory. I think they won first place. I don't know how anyone could have beat them.
Well, yeah, there's no way that they reacted after that, after not winning.
Yeah. I would put that as the
Good
greatest
thought.
dance scene of all time and probably the greatest restaurant scene of all time as well.
I think we have done both of those power rankings. Maybe we did.
Have you ever
restaurant
seen?
scenes for sure.
Have you ever seen the behind the scenes footage of Quentin showing Uma Thurman how to dance? He says that her dance was inspired by the Disney movie The Aristocats, excuse me, and he's doing her moves and showing how to. That's a wonderful clip to watch. It just shows you that he had every little detail in mind about like how this movie was meant to be made, and he was just perfect for it.
My best scene with the final scene. I'm gonna go with Jules talking with Pumpkin and Honey Bunny, and that whole existential crisis he's going through while they're trying to rob him. I'm gonna say that's always been. I've always loved that scene, no matter how many times I've watched this. So I'm gonna go with that as my favorite scene. Because really, we're talking about favorite scenes. I mean, they're all-timer scenes, so it's not like we can say a wrong answer here. It's just which one's your favorite.
See, the thing for me with this movie is it's like 8 scenes that are just separated, and it is 8 consecutive scenes that are amazing, all of them. If I'm not choosing the 2 that you chose, I guess I will say I love Butch and Fabian. I really do. I love everything about them. So I will say the scene the scene kind of after oral pleasure, maybe that, because I mean, like that just sounds like a guy and his girlfriend talking, making fun of each other, giving jabs, everything about that. Like that scene is so good and so true. And then he just like passes out on the couch. So something about that, and him like trying to like half teach her Spanish. I love everything about that scene. So I'll go with that. But I mean, you could choose any scene in this movie. I mean, there's no wrong answer.
I'm surprised. I mean, the one we have to shout out is the OD scene. Like that. Talk about intense moments.
The scene of like the adrenaline scene, or where she actually ODs.
The adrenaline. I mean, both. I mean, her dance around "Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon" is as iconic as you get from this movie.
Of course.
And then I have to stab her 3 times. No, you don't have to stab her 3 times. You just stab her once.
He goes down 4 times though.
It's true. He does. That's a flaw.
I mean, but the other one I wanted to say was the scene where Vincent and Jules are talking about the foot massage for the first time, because that scene, like they are walking and talking, and one of them is pissed, the other one is like, no, I want to continue this conversation because this is really interesting. I've had that situation a lot. And then you eventually get them to realize like, okay, yeah, you actually do have a point. I love that scene, everything about that scene. And then they're like, shit, we still have like a minute and a half. Let's walk over here and continue this conversation.
The Reqal quote of the movie. The only one I could think of that's like iconic enough to be on that is "Don't be a," and draw the box. Like that would be in that commercial.
Because they repeat that in Kill Bill, sort of.
My Reqal quote of the movie was, "Does he look like a bitch?"
No, there would be a good one to add to it. Well, the 2 that I wrote down were Royale with cheese, obviously. That has to be somewhere. Yeah. Or somebody at the concession stand. Did you order a $5 shake?
Yeah. Todd wins.
Except now it would be at least $7.50. It'd be like, did you order a $15 shake?
Yeah, that is definitely something that is outdated from this movie. Or underrated lines. Did you guys have any underrated lines that aren't your quote of the day that you want to shout out?
I like garçon means boy. I don't think I'd have realized that until watching it this time with the subtitles on, because I have to do that.
Coffee.
Vincent says, I have my moments. I feel that all the time.
I don't know if this is a new category. I think Todd will appreciate this. Like line that you say in everyday life that's maybe surprising that you say it. Because for me, quotable line that you say in everyday life. The line for me that I sometimes say when I feel a little punchy at 8:30 in the morning and I see 16-year-olds just kind of loitering in the hallway and I tell them to get to class, I do the wolf. I say, so please, pretty please, with a cherry on top, get to class. So that's my underrated line.
That's pretty good. A couple of those I had written down where I mean they're just situational things where it's like you'll be having a conversation and then they'll be like, wait, you think this is, and then he says, it sounded excessive, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. I mean, it's just like that is the perfect extension of an argument that I've ever heard. Like, I mean, that is something I embody everything about. And then also, well, not that fast, but pretty fast though, because she's like, blueberry pie. He's like, well,
I tell my wife to be chill, Yolanda. She doesn't like when I tell her that, but I say, be chill, Yolanda.
Yeah, she wouldn't like that.
Well, it'd be better than you say, bitch, be cool.
Well, that one got shelved back in 2009. I'm not allowed to say that anymore.
Have you ever tried Stay Cool, Honey Bunny?
I like Be Cool, Yolanda better.
Everything's underrated. If you didn't already quote it.
I know.
Even the deleted scenes are underrated, like the Elvis man versus a Beatles man, which came up later, and she says it's gotta be great for an Elvis man. I like that idea. I like the deleted scenes in the Blu-ray.
I'll say my underrated line. I've already said it. They speak English and what?
Or that's when you know you found somebody special, when you could just shut the fuck up and enjoy silence.
Flaws, outdated conspiracy theories. I have a conspiracy theory, or just kind of a question I need to throw out there. So in the opening scene, Pumpkin and Honey Bunny are talking about the robbing the bank with a telephone, right? And the guy hands over the telephone, and the guy's in the other line that says, you need to give this man all the money, or else his little girl is going to get it. Do you think? And it's like there might not have even been a little girl. Do you think there was a little girl?
I don't even know if the story's real, though.
That's about a point too. Is the story even real?
I mean, I would say yes, but I don't. I don't know. If he's telling this, I hadn't even thought about if the story wasn't real. So
I was just like, oh man, like that just brings a whole new like dynamic to it. Is it if that story, or if there was no girl and it was just a guy walk in there and had someone else on the phone, like, yep, we just pulled this off. High five.
Well, I would just say a flaw that I also had watching it this time. Part of the reason I would put Kill Bill and Jackie Brown a little higher, I don't think these are the best female Tarantino characters ever. It's basically every female character in this movie is someone's wife or girlfriend, and a lot of the dilemmas that are presented in this movie is because
of their Kathy Griffin.
Or Esmeralda. They're like the only
I don't agree. Like, Mia is a completely independent character. The fact that she is Marcel's wife is ancillary to the actual story. Like, there's nothing about that character that isn't independent.
But she's introduced to the movie as Marcellus Wallace.
It doesn't matter. She's never in the same room other than that one scene that nobody remembers. Like, I'm just saying that's a bad point.
Well, you can object to my flaw. I just find the female characters better in Kill Bill and Jackie Brown. Also, it's like they keep on getting into frivolous shit. Like, okay, Mia does the heroin and Fabian forgets the watch.
Jodie is the best character in the movie. She's my favorite.
I don't really have anything bad to say about Jodie. I'm just saying, if we're looking for flaws, I think there are stronger female characters in his other movies. And like I said, I do think the movie's about 15 minutes too long. When we get to the Hawthorne Grill at the end of the movie, I'm kind of ready for the movie to be over. Which is not to say that it's not entertaining. I just think but that's what you get with Tarantino. Was Butch the one who keyed Vincent's car? That was the other question I have. Tarantino has confirmed this theory, but I don't know if I like that theory because I don't know if the timeline fits that. Like, okay, we know that they have a somewhat adversarial relationship, and Vince calls him Palooka, but like I don't know if so he leaves the strip club and keys Vincent's car. I don't know if that entirely adds up, but that is
But
a
yeah,
very popular
because
internet
Vincent talks
conspiracy
about it
theory.
like it happened a little while ago. He doesn't talk about it like it like just happened. Because that
Yeah.
would have had to been way was if he was
Tarantino,
just picking up the drugs then.
Tarantino confirmed the theory though, so I don't know whatever you
Wow,
want,
I
but
never
it's
thought
kind
of
of
that.
interesting.
That's unbelievable.
So something else I thought of in that moment when Vincent and Butch meet in the bar is I had to chuckle a little bit because 5 years earlier that the last conversation between John Travolta and Bruce Willis was stepfather and baby in Look Who's Talking. So because Bruce Willis was the voice of Mikey.
That's true.
Nicely done, Terry.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we love look. Can we deep dive? Look who's. I would just want to deep dive. Look who's talking. The third one with
Oh,
the animal.
just the third one.
Yeah,
They
I
call
like
me
the
rocks.
the second and the third one are I do like a lot. Yeah.
the first one's actually a good movie though. The second and third, that's Beethoven's second territory. The first one's actually a decent movie. Like whenever I hear the Beach Boys song, I get around. I think of the opening of Look Who's Talking. Can't that's iconic now. And George Segal, one of the great stickmen in movie history from that movie.
I wrote down. I'm not entirely sure why Butch's fire alarm goes off in his apartment.
I was thinking that too.
The strudel, right?
No.
Pop-Tart?
No, I mean it
No?
was done. Yeah, I mean it like that was what made him shoot the gun, but like none of that is going to make the fire alarm go off. I mean
Maybe it was
that
a
would
smoke
have to be
detector, though, because it was smoky.
what was smoky though? The gun? I guess it was a
Gun, yeah.
giant gun, but it's still I'm not entirely sure how that worked because it's going off the whole time. Also, the sound effects on Butch punching Marcellus, I don't know what that was. I mean,
Yeah,
it
not
sounds
great.
like he's like punching a cantaloupe or something. It's like it didn't sound like he was punching a face. Let's see here. I said they are all they're all concerned about the car because of the cops, but then the wolf speeds like crazy all the time. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I'm glad I wrote that down. I don't understand it. Like he's like we can't have like a tail light going out or whatever. But then he
I'm gonna make
goes,
a 30-minute drive in 10 minutes.
exactly. Zed also has a personalized chopper, but he's also like a cop or a security guard. I'm not really sure how that worked. I also wrote down Edward Norton sounds exactly like Tarantino in this movie. Like if Edward Norton had this role in like the early 2000s or something like that, he would have played Jimmy for sure. I also want to know, were Brett and his buddies, were they just still up from the previous night? Because there's no burger joint that's going to be open at 7 a.m. But he's eating a fresh like cheeseburger and a Sprite. It's a little fishy at 7 a.m. I mean, it's
They're all night. It's Los Angeles though. I think there are burger joints that stay open all night in LA.
Maybe, but do you think they were still up from last night, or do you think they all got up early?
So. No, I assume they were just up all night.
Yeah, because the one guy was the Flacco guy was pretty high probably. I also wanted to know. So Vincent was in Amsterdam for 3 years, right? And he's doing something, working for Marcellus. You would imagine. Otherwise, he wouldn't just go back to working for Marcellus again. But then Mia says that she went to Amsterdam like once a year or something just to hang out. Wouldn't you think that at some point in the 3 years, if she went there at least once a year, that they would have crossed paths? Like she would have gone to Marcellus's club or wherever he was working.
Well, did you see the deleted scene, Todd? Watch the deleted scene. There's an extended version of that conversation where they address this exact point. And they talk about how they both know the owner of the club that they stayed at, Derek, and that Mia was in a picture behind the counter that Vincent recognizes. So they actually address that quite succinctly in one of the deleted scenes.
Okay, so they realized that was a flaw, but they just like decided to take it out of the movie.
Yeah.
Okay, well I did not watch the deleted scenes. I don't think I ever
Good
have
deleted
actually.
scenes. They're good deleted scenes. All of them, because again, the movie's too long as it is, so maybe just leave them in. But they're all pretty good. There's a little bit of it. There's a Monster Joe scene that goes in a little bit more in depth, which is pretty good.
It's not too long. I would have taken this at 3.5 hours. Like honestly, Sally Menke is a genius. But the Gimp, the guy who plays the Gimp, he was a screenwriter on Boy Meets World, which is awesome. Perfect. And he was also the guard who Felicity Shagwell flashes in The Spy Who Shagged Me. And she's like, "Take a look at these, my man." And he's like, "Mommy!" And then he walks into the hot lava. that is the Gimp.
He was also married to Julia Sweeney.
I did not know that. So Tarantino's probably an Austin Powers fan. He needs to get the fourth one made already. All right. Yes. No, that'd be so good.
R-rated Austin Powers, written and directed by Tarantino.
You heard it here first. If that happens in the next 5 years.
Starring Kenan Thompson.
And Samuel Jackson. LVP, I'll go first. My LVP is Fabian for forgetting to watch. Bedside Table on the Kangaroo. I mean, I don't think I could be any clearer.
I said the words, "Don't forget my father's watch."
Yeah. So LVP, Fabian. My MVP, I'm gonna go with Sally Menke for cutting this thing into it.
Yes.
Tight, yeah.
Tight. 2.5 hours. Yeah. All right, Todd.
My LVP is, I don't know, it's either like the 8% of critics on Rotten Tomatoes who give this a thumbs down, or any version of Girl, You Be a Woman Soon that isn't the one by Urge Overkill, because that version is amazing. I listen to that all the time. And my MVP, it's Bruce Willis. I think Bruce Willis is fantastic in this movie. He's probably the one who got the movie made, I would think. I mean, I haven't read all of the things about the movie, but I mean, I think Bruce Willis is the one who actually absolutely is the draw of the movie, and his scenes are my favorites.
All right, my LVP. I have two LVPs that are kind of related. One of my LVPs is the lady at the Cannes Film Festival. There was a French lady who booed Tarantino when he got up on stage to accept the Palme d'Or. Also, very good special feature on this Blu-ray and it's on YouTube too. Is when Tarantino accepts the Palme d'Or, he flips off the audience, which is great. Actually, I think he flipped off the lady, and then he says something along the lines of, "I'm really surprised. I've never won anything in my life because my film to win something that means that you generally unite people, and my films tend to divide people." You know who the Cannes jury president was in 1994? This is a good trivia question.
Is it Clint?
Yeah, it was Clint, which I think is funny because I think that just speaks to how universal this movie is. I mean, in some ways, it's a very niche movie, but for someone like Clint to obviously champion it is really pretty cool. My other LVP is the 1994 Oscars. I'm surprised we didn't talk about this more. I think it's one of the great travesties. Cover your ears, Terry. One of the great travesties in modern history that Forrest Gump beat this movie.
You also said that when we did Shawshank, though. Like, I mean,
Shawshank is tougher for me because I will say, rewatching Shawshank, I'm glad I'm not a 1994 Oscar voter, but I wouldn't have voted for Forrest Gump. That is
right. This is what I'm saying. Like, the two of you had the exact same thing. It was like, Zach, you with Shawshank were like, this is like a rediscovery for me. This is an all-time movie.
Yes.
I haven't watched that much. And Terry, for this one, is the exact same thing. You're like,
well, would you put it over Forrest Gump, Terry? That's the real question.
Yeah, both of them are better than Forrest Gump. I mean, Terry's, I don't know.
I also
Terry's
see
old. He would have voted for Forrest Gump, but
Terry is old. That's true. I also have no idea why Travolta got the Best Actor nomination and Sam got supporting actor. I'm sorry. If that's not, I mean,
Travolta's got way more screen time. Sam Jackson's gone for the middle hour and a half of the movie. Like, I mean, I was trying to figure that out too.
If Travolta gets supporting actor nominated, I wonder if he beats Martin Landau. Martin Landau shouldn't have. But Martin Landau is delightful in Ed Wood, but there's no way he's better than Samuel
There's
Jackson.
no way he was losing at all. Like,
It's
I mean,
it's
if
dumb
he was losing, it would have been to Gary Sinise.
the whole Oscars that year was dumb. It should have been either Travolta and Jackson, and then Uma wins supporting actress. I mean, she was the star of the Oscars with Oprah. And I'm sorry. I mean, this is like The Shape of Water beating Get Out. It's the '90s version of that. It's just, it doesn't work.
It's like the King's Speech beating Social Network.
Yeah, that's another good parallel. Are we doing MVPs too? I know Todd just did his MVP.
Yeah.
Okay, my MVP. I guess Tarantino is the obvious one, but I'll get a little bit more esoteric. You said, "Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon." I'll kind of bookend that by saying "Son of a Preacher Man," the Dusty Springfield song, which I believe is also one of Tarantino's non-negotiables. We like that. Do you like the word non-negotiable because of The Bear season 3, Todd? I've been watching that, and I'm like, that's where Todd gets non-negotiable from, in season 3 of The Bear. Yes, Chef.
No, that was way before that we started that. But
Okay,
I mean,
well, it
is a good point. I appreciate it.
By the way, this weekend there's a new Netflix movie out called Non-Negotiable. We may need to watch it.
There we go. My other MVP, along with Son of a Preacher Man, is the Chuck Berry song "You Never Can Tell." And again, high war songs, along with Smashing Pumpkins in Watchmen. You can't hear that song and not think of Pulp Fiction. And it's just a perfect song for that scene too. But yeah, those two songs, along with Quentin, would be my MVP. All right, quote of the day comes from Quentin. And he's quoting Pauline Kael. And this is where he discovered his aesthetic. Todd may know what this quote is. But it was in Pauline Kael's review of Band Apart, the great Godard movie. Kael said it was as if a bunch of movie-mad young French boys had taken a banal American crime novel and translated the poetry that they had read between the lines. And then Quentin says, it was like, that's my aesthetic right there, is the poetry that they read between the lines. And that is this movie and this podcast.
Nice.
I like it.
All right, I'll go next. My quote from Pulp Fiction is, I think also describes this podcast. Just because you are a character doesn't mean you have character.
It's a good one.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Wolf.
The Wolf. To Zach's worst performance. All right, Todd.
I'll go with that quote from Pulp Fiction. If my answers frighten you, then you should cease from asking scary questions.
Oh, that was good. That's like getting a little abstract in that last scene.
That wasn't the last
questioning
scene.
Existence. Well, the last segment of the movie. Be like Kane in Kung Fu, just travel the world and eventually become a piano player that played with Rufus and many other great Texas music. If they came through Texas, he done played with them.
That's a good call.
That's a conspiracy theory right there. That's what Jules became, Rufus.
I love that conspiracy theory. Jules became Rufus.
I never thought of that.
That's perfect.
He's the man.
He's the man. And now, if "Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon" was his go-to wedding song, then that instead of "Love Me Tender," that would have been.
He's an Elvis man, not a Beatles man.
All right, well, we'll draw this podcast to a close on that note.